Welcome to the Raising Mothers podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kahn. I'm a wife, a mama to two, and a certified conscious parent coach practitioner. It is my mission to guide mothers in transforming the way they connect, communicate, and collaborate with their teen. Every week, I will be bringing you inspiring, empowering, and educational episodes that will give you the tools you need to consciously raise your teenager. All right, let's do this. Entering the teen years is literally like walking into unknown territory. And when we are faced with so many unknowns, naturally, conscious and unconscious fears are going to arise within us. And when fear rears its ugly head, you can always expect for its best friend, control, to show up right alongside of it. We think by controlling a situation or a person, we're going to be able to get rid of the fear of the unknowns. Ultimately, our need to control is one of the many faces of the ego that shows up as a way to actually protect us. One of the big things the ego in the form of control protects us from is the feeling like we have somehow failed as a parent. I don't know about you, but there have been so many times in my personal motherhood journey where I have found myself feeling like a failure in parenthood. Even though I wasn't, it's all a part of this growing and transforming and learning process. But the ego protects us from feeling that way. So in comes control to try to fix, manipulate, and change situations so that we, the parent, don't feel like a failure. In this episode, I'm going to share with you 3 things that you can implement as you enter the territory of the teen years that will take fear and control out of the driver's seat and put in peace and connection in its place. These 3 things are going to invite you to let go and lean in so that the parent-teen relationship enters flow and peace and connection, which I think is something that we all desire and crave. So the first thing that you can implement into your family or into the relationship you have with your teen is boundaries. Boundaries often have a negative connotation, right? Like, oh, you got to have a boundary. And some people are like, I can't even stick to a boundary, which I totally get because I was one of those. And that is a whole other episode that we can do, why we have a hard time sticking to boundaries. But the short end of it is if we can't stick to boundaries ourselves, we're not going to be able to set boundaries for our family or with our teen. Why is that? Because oftentimes we people please and the boundaries seem too harsh, or we end up second guessing ourselves. Be confident in your boundary. And there's 2 different types of boundaries that you can create. Dr. Shefali likes to call them sand and stone boundaries, which I love because it gives a beautiful imagery of the type of boundaries that they are. So stone boundaries are these boundaries that are not negotiable. They are set in stone. These set in stone boundaries are life enhancing for your teen. They have to do with hygiene, self-care, sleep, education, and socialization on a very basic level. What does that look like? Some examples of stone boundaries would be more social time and less screen time, or less junk food and more healthy food, or less disorganization and more organization, or less late nights and more sleep. Then there are sand boundaries, and think of sand boundaries that are boundaries that are negotiable. They're still life enhancing for your teen, but they have a little bit of wiggle room. They're a happy medium between negotiating with the parent and connecting with the parent. So examples would be, if it's late at night and your teen is still on their phone, the sand boundary would be like, it's time to put away your phone, and they might ask for 5 minutes. Or you can negotiate a certain amount of time that you, the parent, are okay with. That's still life enhancing for the teen. So if you're negotiating and the teen's like, I want 2 more hours, that probably isn't a life enhancing negotiation, because that's getting into their sleep, which they need their sleep. And that would be a stone boundary. Another example is homework needs to be done, and you, the parent, would prefer for your teen to come home right from school, finish their homework, and just get it done, like off their plate. No one has to worry about it. They can go on to their sports, do the rest of the things. You just want it, you want it done. But your teen might have another idea of how they want their afternoon to look. They might want to come home tuning into themselves and what it is that they need, and think, I would love to have an hour after school to decompress, to have a snack, and just recharge a bit before homework. Now, the parent, if they want it done right after school, when they hear that their child needs a little bit of time, fear might arise within them, thinking, oh my gosh, they have sports. What if they don't finish this? Then it's going to be, you fill in the blank, right? Our minds can take us some wild, wild places. But a sand boundary would look like this. The teen expresses what they need, and the parent, within reason, if it's life enhancing, sure, of course you want them to recharge. Of course you want them to fuel up and have a little bit more energy before they sit down and focus. They've had 6 hours of concentration at school. I think as parents, sometimes we forget that we too need breaks, that we too need a recharge. And so these sand boundaries are a way to connect with your child and be like, yeah, I get it. Totally have an hour. That sounds great to me. What a great, wise decision you're making for yourself. You're tuning into your body. You're recognizing what it is that you need, and I'm here to support you. Now, when that hour comes, you, the parent, can hold them accountable. So when that hour is up, be like, hey, it's been an hour. Let me know if you need anything as you start your homework. That would be a sand boundary. You're negotiating. Another example of a sand boundary is chores. Your child might be responsible for emptying out the dishes. You probably, as a parent, would like the dishes emptied at a certain time of day every single day. This would be a way to negotiate with your child. And you can ask them, I would like the dishes emptied out every day. What is going to work for your schedule? That is empowering them. That is actually helping them come up with time management and tuning in to see when can I do this? When can I set a time and day for myself that I will be consistent? These are life enhancing boundaries. You're helping them develop really, really healthy tools and skills that they can apply to the rest of their life. So the importance of sand boundaries, the important thing to remember is these are negotiable, but they are still life enhancing. So what that means is the chores still are going to get done. You're going to hold them accountable. The homework is still going to get done. You'll hold them accountable. But it doesn't have to always be when you, the parent, want it done. You can negotiate. The second thing that you can implement as you let go and lean in is communication. And if you missed the season 5, episode 8 of Raising Mothers podcast, I would highly go back and listen to it. The title of that episode was called How the Inner Voice of the Parent Becomes the Outer Voice to the Child. And this is such an important episode to listen to really understand how us, the parent, how we talk to ourselves unconsciously comes out the way that we talk to our children. So if we are healing and nurturing ourselves and really becoming aware of the inner voices within us, we can then create not only a healthier communication with ourselves, but a healthier communication with our teen as well. So if you missed that episode, go back and listen to it. It's season 5, episode 8. When you are communicating with your teenager, there are going to be many times in this season where your teen will either talk to you a certain way or come to you already in mood, and you are already going to have these preconceived beliefs or judgments. And so when your teen comes to you, you're going to have naturally some really big emotions or really big feelings that come up. I really want to encourage you as a parent to recognize when these big emotions or these big feelings come up and use those as a signal to pause. Here's why. When you pause, you are actually disrupting the message that your body is sending to your brain to immediately react. These reactions are always based on past experiences. So if your child has talked to you this specific way before and you got super upset and you yelled or whatever your reaction was, your body's going to remember that tone and go straight back to that reaction. So if you can recognize within yourself these big emotions and feelings when they start to arise and remember to pause, what's going to happen is through the process of the pause, that message your body is sending to your mind is going to be interrupted so that you can regulate your emotion, your nervous system, and decide to respond in a healthy way instead of impulsively reacting. I love acronyms and I love them because they help me remember what to do in specific situations. So I came up with this acronym for pause, and it goes like this: place attention on unconscious stories and expectations. So when your child comes to you and is talking to you that certain way, and you recognize the big emotions and feelings that start to arise within you, and you pause, ask yourself, what is the unconscious story or expectation here? And once you recognize that, that will help you to respond to your child in a healthy way and shed what no longer serves you. So maybe your story is, my child is so rude and so disrespectful. So in that pause, you will recognize this is the story. And my expectation is for my child to always talk to me in a kind voice. We are human, and sometimes there's going to be attitude. I know for me personally, I absolutely have attitude sometimes, and I'm not meaning to be disrespectful. I'm not meaning to be rude to the person I'm talking to. It's because I haven't taken care of the big feelings and emotions inside. And that is the same with our children too. Now, is it okay for our children to like scream at us or talk rude to us? No. But when we recognize the story or our expectation, it helps us to respond to them and talk to them in a healthy way that communicates like, hey, I see you. I know you're frustrated right now. I can see you're having a hard time. Why don't you take a minute, and when you're ready to talk to me in a kind way, I am totally here to listen to you. And so that is the healthy way to communicate versus my child's talking to me rude and I react and I yell and then it all blows up, right? So in communication, if we can learn to implement the pause, it will help us so much, not having to pick up and clean up so many pieces after. We won't have to do damage control as much because we'll regulate and we'll respond. The second thing that you can do when you're leaning in and letting go as far as communication goes is to ask questions and get curious. All too often as parents, we want to fix and control the situation, and so we tell our child what to do. That, a lot of times, if you put yourself back into your own teenage years, what happens? You put the wall up. Like you go to another planet because you're like, oh my God, here we go again. And actually the other day, my son was talking to me about something and I forget exactly what I said. And he was like, I don't need a lecture. And I was like, you're right. You don't need a lecture. Sometimes they just want us to like sit in it with them. And by asking them questions and getting curious, it takes that wall of resistance down and it opens up the environment for healthy communication and connection. By asking questions and getting curious, you're actually helping guide your child to come up with their own solution. So what does asking questions and being curious look like? It looks like this. They come to you, they're having a hard time with something, and you say, tell me more. What would it look like if? Have you thought about? So those kinds of things get the wheels turning in their own mind, help them come up with their own solution to their problem, and it lets their guard down or their wall down of resistance. Another thing when we're communicating, and I touched on this a little bit, but we as parents want to fix. We want to fix because one, we don't want to see your child in pain. Two, we don't want to see our child go through really hard things. And so we initially want to just take over and fix and manipulate the situation so they can just be happy. Well, that's not life. Not everything is happy. And if we can learn to come alongside and guide our child instead of fixing everything, not only are they going to develop resilience within them to get through life, but they will create their own happiness. They are going to feel empowered to tackle whatever comes their way. They will know that they can handle it, that they're not going to crumble in the face of conflict or fear or difficulty. The third thing that us parents can do as we are letting go and leaning in is shedding the shoulds. We all have an expectation, an idea, or dream of how we think our teenagers should be. We think, all the time we think how they should be in school, how they should be as a person, who they should like, who they should be friends with, what sport they should play, what college that they should go to. And all too often, these shoulds create such a divide in the parent-child connection. And most importantly, it creates a divide in the connection that they have to themselves. Because if they are constantly trying to meet our expectations and our idea of shoulds, they are in a sense just living a life for us and trying to meet all of these expectations and shoulds that we're placing on them. And they're disconnecting to their true authentic self and disconnecting from us, the parent. So if us, the parent, can really become aware of our shoulds and expectations, we're going to be able to bridge the gap and build connection instead of disconnection. And what does that look like in a day-to-day situation? When you feel triggered, when you feel yourself upset or frustrated at a situation, in that pause, ask yourself, what am I expecting? How do I think that this should be? And ask yourself, where is this coming from? What belief do I have? Why do I think my child should do this sport? Why do I think my child should go to this school? Why do I think that my child should be friends with this group? And ask yourself, is this belief something that serves me or my child? And if it's not, then you can go through the process of deconstructing and healing of how you even came to that belief in the first place. When we shed beliefs, when we shed judgments, shoulds, and expectations, we create this beautiful blank canvas to build a super solid foundation for the parent and teen to have an amazing connection, a connection that's based on no judgment, unconditional love, guidance, trust, peace, and joy. So as we enter into this unknown territory of the teen years, if us parents can let go but lean in, we are going to create an environment to raise emotionally healthy adults who are going to thrive in this life. And we can do that by implementing the 3 things that I shared today: boundaries, healthy communication, and shedding the shoulds. I'm literally so excited that you took the time to hang out with me here in this space, and I would absolutely love to connect with you more. You can find me on Instagram or visit my website at ashleycahn.co. That's ASHLEYKAHN.co. I'll see you there.